The paradox lies entirely there. What drives every human being to chase happiness is, at the same time, what pushes it further away. It's a race with no finish line, a desire that, in the very moment it promises peace, plants the seed of restlessness. It's no coincidence that Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the clearest and most misunderstood thinkers of modern times, starts right here to dismantle the illusions that cling to existence. At first glance, his thought can seem ruthless. In reality, it's a clear, unadorned lens that invites us to observe life without the masks that culture and social expectations have sewn onto it. His reflections offer no easy consolations, but they open an unusual path. To see pain and dissatisfaction not as anomalies to be eliminated, but as essential elements of life itself. Not out of resignation, but to free oneself from illusions that make every step heavier. Schopenhauer was born in 1788 in Danzig, in an era marked by revolutions and radical change. He lived between the remnants of the Enlightenment and the eruption of Romanticism, amid the Napoleonic Wars and the triumph of industrial machinery. It was a time when faith in progress and reason clashed with an increasingly complex world, where certainties wavered and old paradigms crumbled. He grew up in a wealthy family, but his childhood was marked by an early loss and a distant, cold upbringing, more interested in social conventions than emotional depth. This initial emptiness shaped his character and drove him to take refuge in study, turning thought into both a shelter and a weapon. His formative years took him to Göttingen, where he encountered Kant, Plato, Aristotle, and also Eastern philosophies, especially Buddhism and Hinduism, which offered him a radically different way of looking at existence. It was at this crossroads between West and East that Schopenhauer built his vision, a world dominated by a blind, irrational, relentless will that drives every living being to desire without pause. In 1818, he published The World as Will and Representation, the beating heart of his philosophy. At first, the work went almost unnoticed, overshadowed by Hegelian optimism, which promised progress and collective fulfillment. Schopenhauer, on the other hand, offered no future salvations. He described life as a continuous movement, where every goal achieved immediately gives rise to a new desire. It's like running on a wheel that never stops turning. One moves forward, one sweats, but never reaches lasting peace. Despite this initial indifference, his voice began to resonate in the years that followed, profoundly influencing figures like Nietzsche and Wagner. Today, 2 centuries later, his perspective on the human condition still strikes a deep chord. Perhaps because, in the hyper-connected chaos of the present, his insights feel more relevant than ever. Among the many fragments of his thought, 9 reflections stand out like milestones, capable of overturning one's gaze and opening unexpected paths. The first concerns the weight of other people's judgment. How many actions, choices, and life paths are not born from authentic feeling, but from the need to be seen and approved. The search for approval becomes a subtle prison, an invisible pressure that pushes people to live according to external gazes. Schopenhauer suggests breaking free from this, shifting the center of one's existence from the outside to the inside. In an age dominated by constant comparison and digital showcases, this reflection sounds like an urgent call to inner freedom. The second reflection tackles the question of suffering. He doesn't invite people to ignore it, nor to fight it in desperation. He looks it straight in the eye, recognizing it as an integral part of human experience. In this, his vision deeply resonates with Eastern philosophies, for which pain is a teacher, not an enemy. Accepting suffering doesn't mean desiring it. It means stopping the pretense that it isn't there. In this lucid gaze lies the possibility of transformation, from paralyzing obstacle to instrument of awareness. Those who understand the nature of pain can appreciate moments of respite, and find a kind of serenity that no longer depends on external conditions. The third reflection focuses on the perception of reality. For Schopenhauer, what is called the world is actually a personal representation, filtered through the senses, emotions, and desires. There isn't a single shared reality, but rather a multiplicity of partial visions. This awareness is liberating. It puts conflicts into perspective, opens up new viewpoints, and dismantles the illusion of holding absolute truth. The fourth reflection goes to the heart of his philosophy, the relentless dynamics of desire. The will drives individuals to constantly want something new, generating an endless cycle. A goal is desired, then achieved, then quickly becomes ordinary, and immediately a new need emerges. It's a mechanism that keeps life in motion, but rarely leads to lasting peace. Schopenhauer invites us to observe this carefully, to recognize when a desire arises from a genuine need or when it's simply an attempt to fill an inner void with something else. The fifth reflection is an invitation to rediscover simple pleasures. In the race toward ever greater and more dazzling achievements, people forget the power of small, genuine moments. Reading an intense book, walking in nature, listening to a melody that strikes deep chords. These moments don't require triumphs or riches, yet they are often the ones that leave the most lasting marks. The sixth focuses on health, understood in the broadest sense, body and mind as the foundation of every other form of well-being. Schopenhauer states this clearly: 9/10 of serenity depend on it. It's not a moralistic warning, but a simple and radical observation. Without inner balance, every other achievement loses substance. The seventh reflection explores the relationship between intellect and will. Many actions don't arise from clear reasoning, but from deep, irrational impulses that the mind rationalizes afterward. Understanding this dynamic isn't about self-condemnation. It's about honestly acknowledging human limits and complexity. The eighth returns to his connection with Eastern thought, the art of detachment. Not a cold, cynical detachment, but the ability to observe desires and pains without being overwhelmed by them. In this posture, a form of inner calm arises, one that doesn't depend on controlling the external world, but on understanding its ever-changing nature. The ninth reflection closes with a powerful image: life as a work of art. Every day is a brushstroke on a canvas. Some strokes are light and bright, others dark and intense, but all contribute to the final picture. What has been cannot be erased, but it can be integrated. Difficulties become shadows that give depth. Joyful moments become sparks that illuminate the whole. In this vision, there is no claim to uninterrupted perfection. What matters is the coherence and richness of the overall design. Schopenhauer's thought has often been labeled as bleak, but that's only the surface. Behind his disenchanted gaze lies an invitation to clarity, to freedom from paralyzing illusions, to building a more authentic relationship with life. It's not an appeal to resignation, but to the quiet strength of those who stop chasing mirages and begin to walk through reality as it is, finding there, precisely there, where it once seemed there was only struggle, spaces of authenticity and moments of peace. In today's world, where happiness is often sold as a product and suffering is buried under layers of distraction, these reflections take on a new meaning. They don't offer escape routes, but tools to move through existence with clear vision and steady heart. And if life doesn't promise everlasting serenity, it's equally true that within its imperfection, something precious can emerge. A form of inner freedom that doesn't depend on what happens, but on how it's understood. In the end, Schopenhauer doesn't shut the door on hope. He shifts it. He doesn't place it in unreachable dreams, but in concrete moments, lucid gestures, and a deep acceptance of reality. And it's precisely in this shift that a new space opens up, where life stops being a blind struggle and becomes an authentic path, made of light and shadow, desires and pauses, falls and rebirths. A path that, despite everything, can still surprise.